Yo guys, what is going on? Got a ruling video for you guys for the BT11 format. I've been having a lot of fun testing out the new format as it is coming up. At the time of recording this, the set has not yet come out, but basically we know all the cards, and so I've been testing it out, and throughout messing around with the cards, there have been some rulings I've been wondering about, so I looked into them a little bit, and so I made this video to just kind of explain to you guys what some of the most prominent cards are in the set 11 format, as well as some of the interactions you should know, especially if you're going to be playing any of these decks on a local level, on a competitive level, whatever it may be. So I got a lot of cool kind of scenarios for you guys, so if you like solving puzzles, or if you just like knowing more rulings, or you just want to hear the cards explained, I got you covered, so let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, so scenario number one I do want to explain is going to be the new raid keyword. So raid is a keyword new to BT11 that says when this Digimon attacks, you may switch the target of the attack to one of your opponent's unsuspended Digimon with the highest DP. So at the time of recording this, again, I said BT11 is not out, so it's possible that the actual name for the keyword might be changed. We saw that with Blitz and some other keywords like in the past, whatever. But just anyways, this is the keyword I'm referring to, the one on Marsmon and his evolution line. So how does this keyword work? Well, okay, so let's say I've got a Marsmon on field. Let's just say I have like 2 memory or whatever, doesn't really matter. So let's say I've just got this Marsmon on field, and when I attack, I can switch the attack target to the DP, highest DP Digimon on the opponent's field. So let's say, so all my opponent's Digimon are unsuspended, so I have no valid targets for an attack amongst my opponent's Digimon here. So what I'm going to do is going to swing security. And then basically raid is, the timing of it is treated as like a when attacking effect, because it says when this Digimon attacks. So you could trigger it alongside your other when attacking effects. So this one is going to let me change the attack target from the security to the Lobomon here, because the Lobomon is the unsuspended Digimon with the highest DP. So for example, I can swing security here and then change the attack target to this. Once the attack resolves, the Lobomon and the Marsmon will battle, Lobomon will be deleted. So in a scenario where maybe let's say the Lobomon is suspended, right? So in that scenario, I'm going to swing security, and then raid says you can switch the attack target to one of your opponent's unsuspended Digimon with the highest DP. So it has to fill both those requirements. So in that scenario, you can't choose Lobomon because it's suspended. So in this case, you have to either choose one of the Vmon or the Dracomon, and you can choose either of them because they both have the same DP. It would work the same way even if this wasn't on field. Like if you just had 2 unsuspended Digimon with the same DP, they are both the highest, so you can choose either one of them to attack. Same thing will battle. Same thing will happen to the battle, and then the lower DP one will be deleted. So that's basically how that keyword works. Another scenario I kind of wanted to talk about just a little bit is going to be an instance where you've got a Digimon with the keyword raid, and then you have an effect underneath it. So like let's say in this case a when attacking effect, that like the effect changes, or the effect needs to meet a certain condition, like as far as the attack target goes. Okay, so I was actually poking around in the Digimon Discord a little bit, because this one was confusing me as well. So for generally 90% of cases, when attacking effects, it's gonna work similarly to the Biomon here. Okay, so what'll happen is I'm going to go ahead and declare an attack towards my opponent, to my my opponent's security, basically, and then I can utilize both the raid effect and the when attacking from the Biomon in either order. Okay, because the timing of raid works as when attacking effect, as we've talked about. So I could either do the effect of Biomon first, so I could then use Biomon once per turn when this Digimon attacks a player to draw 1 card, so then I'll get a draw from my deck. So let's just say this is my deck, I'll draw 1 card. And then I can use the raid keyword to then switch the attack target to something with the highest DP that's unsuspended. And of course, you got to keep in mind it'll require both of those conditions. So then I'll switch the attack from the player onto the KingSukamon here. Okay, and then the attack will resolve. Of course, Marsmon has another effect, but we're not concerned about that. But the attack will resolve, and then this will die, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so the other order you could do that is you can use Raid first and then Biomon's attacking effect. So you can then use Raid to, instead of attacking the player, like I declare attack towards the player, and then I switch it to the Sukumon. Then the question becomes, okay, this Sukumon, KingSukamon, is my new attack target. Can I then still resolve the when attacking effect of the Biomon? Because it says when the Digimon attacks a player, and currently it is attacking a Digimon, not a player. The thing to keep in mind, though, is this card and most of the other cards that work like this, another example would be the starter deck Agumon here, where it says when the Digimon attacks a player, it gains plus 2000 DP. Both of these cards work the same way in that even though it is currently attacking the Sukumon, the fact is that an attack was declared towards the player, and that is what these cards both care about. So in this scenario, you could either choose to resolve Biyomon first and then raid, or raid and then Biyomon, and the outcome would both be the same. You would still attack the Sukumon, KingSukamon, and you would still draw a card. It's the same thing with this Agumon. And in case you had this scenario, you could attack security and then gain the 2000 DP and then switch the attack target, or you could attack the security, switch the attack target with raid, and then gain the 2000, even though the attack is currently towards the KingSukamon, because it just cares that an attack was made at some point to the player. It's a little bit easier to tell from the original Japanese text. The English wording is just not standardized enough. In the Japanese, it makes it more clear that it is a past tense action, so it'd make more sense to word it as like if an attack was declared to the player, or if you attack the player, then trigger draw one, or then get plus 2000 DP. So that's something I did want to mention, that in this scenario it doesn't actually matter which order you do it. It works the same way for blocking or any sort of redirecting. If you've got a Magnamon X, or if you've got, let's say, something with blocker on field, so maybe you've got like a Greymon with Greymon X antibody with the BlackWarGreymon underneath, because blocker does indeed say when an opponent's Digimon attacks, you may suspend this Digimon to force the attack to it instead. So in a sense, that does also redirect. So both of these also work the same way. If I was to attack security, and then use the raid keyword to then switch the attack target. Let's say in this scenario, it's just these two. So I can switch the attack target to maybe this KingSukamon, and then my opponent's reaction timing will kick in after my effects have resolved. So I'll, for one, switch the attack target to the KingSukamon, and then two, since I'm attacking, since I did attack a player, I'll get plus 2000, and then my opponent can respond with the blocker to then block, force to attack this, and then they'll calculate my Marsmon will be at 14,000. It's the same way if this wasn't a Digimon with raid, like let's say it's just a regular Digimon. If I attacked a security, I would gain plus 2000, and then my opponent redirects to the blocker. Well, yeah, it's attacking the blocker now, but you've attacked a player at some point in this sort of interaction, so you're still plus 2000. So that was kind of something I did want to mention as far as raid goes. The next deck I want to talk about is going to be some of the rulings involving the BlackWarGreymon deck. So for example, one of the cool rulings that I want to talk about is going to be Agumon X antibody. Well, this is more so of a ruling rather just like a clarification. But this new Agumon X antibody says you can reveal 3 cards from the top of your deck, add 1 card with Greymon or X antibody in its name, and 1 black tamer to amongst those 2 hands. So the black tamer part's pretty self-explanatory. 1 card with Greymon in his name, you guys know what that means. Greymon X, Metal Greymon, War Greymon, etc. But the cool part is that it can search any card with X antibody in its name. So this includes the X antibody option itself, of course, since it includes X antibody, includes any Digimon with X antibody in the name. So Omnimon X antibody, BlackWarGreymon X antibody, even itself, because it is Agumon X antibody, it can indeed search itself. So that is a cool thing to keep in mind with this card. The next thing I want to talk about is going to be Yuya Kuga's effect. So this guy is a really powerful tamer. He has this secondary effect where it says when one of your Digimon digivolves into a Digimon with a Greymon in its name by suspending this tamer, that Digimon gets plus 2000 until the end of your opponent's turn. And if it digivolved into a same level Digimon, it isn't affected by the effects of your opponent's option cards until the end of your opponent's turn. So this has a couple of really cool implications. First of all, whenever you digivolve into a Greymon, so let's say I have Metal Greymon here, I can then digivolve into Metal Greymon Alterius mode because it digivolves from 0 from Metal Greymon. Since this is Metal Greymon, I'll draw my card, whatever, and then at that time I can trigger Yuya's effect. I can suspend him. This Digimon did digivolve into something with Greymon in its name. It then gets to plus 2000 DP, and then it isn't affected by options. So what that means is, for example, if I swing into security right now, and my opponent's first check is going to be this Wyvern's Breath. What unaffected means, it just means like this card says one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 15,000 DP. So if he tries to choose, if my opponent tries to choose my BlackWarGreymon that was digivolved with Yuya's effect, it'll attempt to do minus 15,000, but nothing will actually happen, so it will still remain at the 7,000 DP because it is just unaffected by this effect. If it was something like a Gaia Force that would choose to delete something, it would be the same result. You can still choose, this is a valid target to choose for a card effect, but just nothing happens in the sense that like it never loses any DP due to an effect. It won't be deleted via an effect. It won't be affected by any sort of option effect your opponent plays, right? Whether it be in security or maybe if next turn they hard play this from hand and pay 8 memory and try to choose this. Again, they can still choose it, but nothing will happen in that regard. So really, really cool stuff. Another thing I do want to mention is Yuya does mention it digivolves into a Digimon with Greymon in its name. Keep in mind the same restrictions kind of apply with this card and something like Marcus. This doesn't work with a card like BlackWarGreymon. Okay, so if you guys are familiar with BlackWarGreymon here, he does indeed have Greymon in his name. If you guys were ever wondering the reason as to why BlackWarGreymon is not able to be used with like Yuya's effect or maybe something like Alterius Mode. Alterius Mode is inherited, says whether Digimon's Greymon or Omnimon's name, you can blah blah blah. You can't use it with this effect because the Japanese name of BlackWarGreymon is not, it doesn't have Greymon in its name. It's just different. It's not the same spelling as like BlackWarGreymon, for example. So that's the reason why. It's a similar thing with like Burning Greymon. His name is Vitramon in Japanese, so it's just a different name. It doesn't coincide with the same cards. So just to keep the rules the same, they decided to just not let it work with stuff like this. So just keep in mind you can't use this with BlackWarGreymon. Unfortunately, that'd be pretty cool, but you can't. Okay, the next cards I want to talk about are going to be the Sukumon cards. So these cards are new to BT11. They have a couple of really cool effects. The main one we're going to be talking about is going to be KingSukamon here. Both his first effect as well as in his inherited all turns effect. So the on play when digivolving effect says if your opponent has 16 or more cards in their trash, or if you have 3 or more cards with Sukumon in their name in your trash, one of your opponent's Digimon becomes Sukumon White DP 3000 until the end of your opponent's turn. So this is important because it is a very unique effect, and there hasn't really been anything in the game up until this point. But basically what this card does is it changes the name of your the name of your Digimon. It changes the color as well as the DP. So there's a couple things to keep in mind of this. First of all, this is not DP reduction. So a card like what's it called? Magnamon X. So let's just pull out Magnamon X real quick. This guy says, or sorry, not Magnamon X. Well, Magnamon X, I guess, with Awakening of the Golden Knight. So this card says the Digimon Digivolve can't have its DP reduced by your opponent's card effect until the next turn. So let's say, for example, for some reason I'm playing Gaiomon and Magnamon X. So I like evolved something into Magnamon X using this card, so it can have its DP reduced, but Sukumon, for example, doesn't reduce the DP, it just changes the DP to being 3000 like originally. So this actually does get around effects such as this, or like BlackWarGreymon, or like, sorry, not BlackWarGreymon, BlackWarGreymon X Antibody. That's probably a more relevant example. Cards like BlackWarGreymon X Antibody that says they can't reduce the Digimon's DP and can't digivolve it. It does actually get around that. So let's say maybe we use this BlackWarGreymon last turn and our opponent is using the KingSukamon effect, just hard playing it or something, giving me 7, and then using that effect to change my Gaiomon into a Sukumon White DP 3000. So again, doesn't reduce the DP, it just changes it. So that has a couple of implications. First of all, it becomes a white Digimon, so I can't digivolve this into something like a Death X or a Omnimon Ultra S, or some level 7 that can evolve on a red or a black Digimon, because the Digimon's color is now white. Similarly, because of its name is Sukumon, I can't, for example, like Gaiomon, I'll get to in a little bit. But let's say I like attack security or something, and then during my opponent's unsuspend phase, maybe there are 3, I unsuspend, and then I could trigger BlackWarGreymon X's Antibody's inherited effect, where when a Digimon becomes unsuspended, if this Digimon's name contains Greymon or Omnimon, trash the top card of your security. So for example, if I reboot during my opponent's turn and attempt to activate this, it won't actually resolve because its name is Sukumon. because it's no longer BlackWarGreymon X antibody, and so this effect doesn't apply because this Digimon's name doesn't contain Greymon or Omnimon. So the reason I had to use this card as opposed to Gaiomon, because Gaiomon is a little bit different. Gaiomon has the condition or the effect at the top that says this card / Digimon is also treated as having Greymon in its name. It at all times has Greymon in its name, regardless of what the original name is, because its original name is Gaiomon, so obviously it doesn't really have Greymon. So it usually, like, for example, if you hard played like a BT5 Agumon, says reveal top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 Digimon card with Greymon in its name. If you reveal a Gaiomon, you can always add this because it is treated as having Greymon in its name. So for the same reason, if your opponent uses a Sukumon, changes this into a Sukumon, it doesn't negate the effects or anything, so it still says this Digimon is also treated as having Greymon in its name, so its name becomes Sukumon, but is also treated as having Greymon. So you can, with Gaiomon, still resolve the Metal Greymon X antibody effect. So that's just something to keep in mind. Then the next thing I do want to point out is the fact that it has this really interesting all turns effect. Okay, so this gets into something that I like to call like multiple activations per like chain or per like effect or whatever. This gets into a little bit complicated territory, but just bear with me for a little bit. So let's get rid of this stuff. So let's say both me and my opponent control a KingSukamon, and we both have the Sukumon inherited effect where it says when this Digimon would be deleted by deleting another Digimon with Sukumon in its name from the field, prevent that deletion. Okay, so let's say, for example, I'm going to activate the option card Wyvern's Breath. So I choose one of my opponent's Digimon, it gets minus 15,000 DP for the turn. Okay, so I'm going to choose my opponent's KingSukamon, it drops to 0. And then because of rules processing, that'll kick in, and it would delete the Sukumon, so then you can utilize the all turns effect that you have from this inherited, which says when it would be deleted, you can delete another Sukumon from the field. And that includes any card on the field, that includes your opponent's card. So because it would be deleted by dropping to 0 DP by rules processing, I'm going to choose to delete my KingSukamon, my opponent's KingSukamon instead. So then that kind of procs this effect where it says, okay, well, I have the same effect, so since I would be deleted by your deletion, I'm going to delete you to prevent that deletion. And the problem here then becomes, well, you can create basically an infinite loop of this because they both have the all turns effect of when this Digimon would be deleted by deleting something else, you can just prevent that. So the thing I want to bring up here is these sorts of interruptive, they're called interruptive effects, where it says when this Digimon would be deleted or when something would happen. It's the same thing with the evade keyword. Maybe I should bring that up with, I think I've got... These have evade written on it. So evade, it works similarly because it has the keyword. Because it has the keyword evade, it says when this Digimon would be deleted by suspending this Digimon, prevent the deletion. So just another example of an interruptive effect. But you can kind of see the problem with that, and that can go on forever. So what actually happens here is effects like these interruptive effects, you can only use once per like interaction, regardless of the fact that this effect is not a once per turn effect. So what I mean by that is, like, let's say again, I'm going to activate Wyvern's Breath to choose my opponent's Sukumon. He's going to drop to 0. It's going to attempt to then delete mine to prevent its deletion, but then I can use mine to prevent its deletion by deleting my opponent's. So what will actually happen is my opponent's will be then deleted because we at that point we've both utilized our protection effect once already in that interaction. So once in that kind of cluster effect, you can only ever utilize these interruptive effects once. So you can't infinitely, it's like a contingency to ever prevent like infinite loops or more complicated, like overly complicated scenarios due to these sort of interruptive effects. Because normally, if you guys are familiar with just regular effects, you can't really interrupt effects. You have to do them one at a time and fully resolve them. But that's not the case with effects like the Sukumon or like evade, or even something like Armor Purge. Armor Purge works the same way, where it says when this Digimon would be deleted, you may trash the top card to prevent the deletion. So yeah, guys, that was kind of the explanation of a Sukumon. Pretty complicated stuff, but if you guys have more questions, let me know down in the comment section below. But just the important thing to keep in mind is you can only ever use these sort of effects in that sort of scenario like once per interactions. So then the last thing I kind of wanted to talk about was going to be a Galacticmon. That card has a similar effect where it says all turns when this Digimon would leave play, you may prevent it from leaving play by returning 4 Venmon from this Digimon Digivolution cards to the bottom of your deck. So let's say in a similar scenario where our opponent activates Wyvern's Breath. Can I find my Venmons somewhere? So let's say we've got a bunch of Venmons underneath us. Let's say we've got 8 Venmons. 3, 6, 9. Okay, that's more than these. So let's say we've got these guys underneath his sources. So this is my stack, all right? So I've got 8 Venmons underneath here. What I can do is my opponent activates Wyvern's Breath, -15. So this is going to check. Again, it drops to 0, and then rules processing kicks in. And so now that it is 0, it would be deleted. So then it can then bottom deck 4 Venmon to prevent that deletion. But because it is still at 0, after this resolves, and because it is, again, an interruptive effect, you can't then bottom deck another 4 Venmon to keep preventing its deletion. You can effectively only prevent its deletion once in this scenario. If it's a Gaia Force or something, or let's say like a Hades Force or whatever, then yeah, because it only happens one at a time, because it just deletes it, and then after it bottom decks the 4, it's not in danger of being deleted again. In a scenario with deletion effects or bounce effects, it doesn't really matter. But the only kind of scenario where it's weird is with DP reduction. Again, it works the same as Armor Purge and all that sort of thing. But definitely just wanted to bring it up because Galacticmon is coming out in the next set. But anyways, guys, oh, one more thing I did want to talk about was going to be BlackWarGreymon. So BlackWarGreymon has a really cool effect. Let's say for some reason you've got this kind of setup on field where your opponent's hard playing the BlackWarGreymon, and you've got 2 Digimon on play. Well, they can then choose to place one of your Digimon underneath your other Digimon. So they're going to choose your Galacticmon. Galacticmon going underneath something else as material is considered leaving play. So if your opponent uses the BlackWarGreymon effect on your Galacticmon, you can use the effect to bottom deck for Venmon to then prevent that deletion. Okay, or prevent the deletion or leaving play. So just basically whenever it would leave anywhere except like being in the battle area. Okay, so you can use it on BlackWarGreymon's effect. BlackWarGreymon's effect also does not like destroy or doesn't delete. It doesn't bounce or anything. So it does get around stuff like the BlackWarGreymon protection effects, which is really cool. So that's another thing to keep in mind. So really cool card there. But that's the last thing I want to mention. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. If you did enjoy the video, let me know down in the comment section below if you're looking forward to more ruling videos, or what kind of content do you guys want to see on the channel. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.